We are back on MorningLine. Nick Beres with you, with Professor Joshua White from over at Vanderbilt, talking about cryptocurrency. Now, we got into all the details, but we can talk about the big picture here of the cryptocurrency millionaires and how it works out. I was just talking about, I didn't even know the boat was there. Rick, our EP, is saying, he saw the boat but thought it was a scam, and I don't blame him, a lot of people. But there are people that bought Bitcoin back when it started that are now billionaires, meaning that they've cashed in their Bitcoin, sold it, and have money, dollars in the bank now. They can go buy Ferraris, right?
Yeah, there are some people that invested early, and some of them continue to believe and continue to hold their Bitcoin, and so they may be millionaires now rather than billionaires, but still have a lot of wealth because they invested early. There's others that invested early, and then as the prices started rising, they thought, well, I'm out. So the example of James selling when he got to a price point. Others feel like they might have missed out. This sort of fear of missing out is a true psychological condition that affects investors, and we often invest and fall victim to what we call behavioral biases because we see others getting rich. We see somebody on Twitter that says, look, I bought Bitcoin, here's my Ferrari, look how well I did, you should buy it. And then by the time you invest, the prices are coming back down, and you end up losing out. And so that's where investing, working with a financial advisor, and taking a disciplined investment approach is important, because otherwise you'll continue chasing returns that have already happened.
And that's like the regular stock market. It can be the same way. If you invest in a penny stock that explodes, and all of a sudden you make a fortune, but a lot of other people, there's probably more people who have lost money on Bitcoin than made money.
In the last several months, a lot of people have lost.
Yeah, a lot. So I'm just saying it's not an easy thing.
Correct.
So I don't know. The mere fact that federal lawmakers are looking at this, when we talk about the percentages, more people are going to be going toward this. It's not. I guess some of us were wondering, is this a fad? And it's been around then since what, the 1990s?
2008 was the
2008 was the white paper, right? But was some of it before then, or was it really 2008 when it took off?
That's really what we view as the launching point.
Okay, so
in 2015 is where it started to explode. The Ethereum blockchain, which is a more efficient system, is where we saw it take off. And so there were a lot in Washington, D.C. and in academia that thought this might be a fad in 2015 to 17. The prices came back down, and we thought, okay, there it is. This is the crypto winter. This was a fad. It's over. At the start of the pandemic, there was a lot of stimulus that was put into the economy. You couldn't really go wrong in investing in 2021, and digital assets also took off. And so their market capitalization, which is the value of all the tokens together, hit $3 trillion in 2021. So those
worldwide?
Worldwide. So those that thought it was a fad when it was 16 billion, it's hard to say it's a fad at 3 trillion. Now today, that's back down to 1 trillion because it's lost a lot of its value, but that's still a lot of money.
You think the regulation, if it finally gets taken care of, will stabilize it so we don't see the drop from 3 trillion to 1 trillion? I mean, is that the idea then? It should be more stable?
Yeah, so definitely stabilization, I think, is going to be one of the goals. It's going to be tough because the blockchain itself is decentralized, and that Bitcoin is autonomous now, in that it has a blockchain that limits the number of Bitcoins that are created. So the price is going to be impacted by the future demand for the Bitcoins. And so regulations aren't going to change that.
Right.
What they could impact is who can participate in mining for Bitcoin. Can we put money in our retirement accounts? That could impact the demand of Bitcoin. So those things could potentially stabilize it. I think one of the larger goals is also to keep other tokens that are maybe less popular or less, or maybe even more volatile, limiting participation in that, or at least disclosing to participants what risks that they are facing. We want to make sure people know that.
Yeah, and on the world stage, how many Bitcoin are there? They're not making any more of them, right? So that's, the supply is not increasing. Like, our treasury prints out more money all the time. So Bitcoin has, what is it? How many, is there a number on how many?
The value of all Bitcoins together is something like 500 billion.
Okay, and do we know how many?
Yeah, so if it's trading at 20-something thousand, and you would
20,000. Oh yeah. All right. So
okay,
so you divide that, figure out whatever that comes to. But that's a finite amount. They're not making new Bitcoin.
So they're made over time slowly. There's a limited supply, and that new miners, and miners, this is again a term from this space. When you transact on the blockchain, the people that are verifying the transactions are called miners. They use computer programs that they solve to make sure that that transaction is accurate. they are rewarded with fractional Bitcoins. And so the new Bitcoins being created is sort of compensation for maintaining the blockchain and maintaining its integrity. So that's where the supply is limited to. As it uses more transactions, more people are compensated for that. But outside of this, we're not creating Bitcoins. There's a finite supply.
And that's so interesting when you hear the phrase like one Bitcoin is selling for $20,000. Okay, but then that makes you just realize there aren't a lot of them.
Right.
They're valued in some. So when you buy, if I were to buy some Bitcoin, I'm buying a portion of one Bitcoin.
Right. So if you invest,
I don't have 20 grand.
Right. If you invest 500, then it's going to be 20,000 divided by the 500, and so you're going to have a fraction.
That fraction of that, but that's still worth something that you can watch, and if it goes up the next,
you can sell that fractional ownership,
just like you would a stock or a bond.
Correct.
I guess it's not that complex in that way of selling and buying.
Yeah, it makes it a little less complex because you can sell it fractionally. Otherwise, people would naturally gravitate to the lower cost coins.
Yeah.
Or Bitcoin would have to change its supply such that the price comes down.
Sure. Now, you're a professor at Vanderbilt. I'm just curious, is it getting to the point now, I'm sure you teach some of this with your students, but I mean, are there finance courses and the like now that are including cryptocurrency in the curriculum along with stock investments and the like, educating youngsters this way now?
Yeah, so we refer to this as fintech, financial technology.
And you teach that? You teach it?
So I teach corporate finance mostly, but I'm also involved with other areas within Vanderbilt, and we're not the only university that has these types of programs. But it's also, there's a huge learning curve for professors. The space changes so quickly. For students as well, there's a lot of opportunities to work in this industry, but things change so fast that we're often learning as fast as the students with the new technologies as they come along.
Right. So, and you were with the Security and Exchange Commission at one point?
Right. So I was a financial economist at the SEC.
Okay, so are their heads spinning over there this kind of stuff?
So they are expanding their head count. The SEC needs more staff.
Sure.
And actually, as part of this bill, a lot of the discussions are going to be around creating advisory committees that are made up of people that work in industry, academics, subject matter experts, to constantly educate lawmakers, to educate regulators, to educate consumers, because the pace of innovation is so rapid. And the technical aspects, the fact that you're sort of merging computer science and finance and really technical areas, we could make some mistakes. We've got hundreds of years of trying to understand banking, and we still sometimes make mistakes.
Yeah.
This is so new, we want to make sure we get it right. And so a lot of the efforts are going to be making sure that the decision makers are well informed, both from the regulators and from the consumer side.
And if nothing is done, what if you just say, let's just leave it as the Wild West and cut it loose?
Well, I think that, so what we have now, this status quo is not working well.
Okay, it's just not because of, like you said, the wild fluctuations.
Wild fluctuations, there's, the use of cryptocurrencies for nefarious actions. There's some uncertainty. There's businesses that want to get involved in this space, but because there's policy uncertainty, they don't know what the rules are, they're not investing. So in that case, this technology could be used for many things we can't imagine right now, but until we get a framework in place where people know the rules, a lot of companies are just too risk averse to get involved. Their general counsel will just say, until we know what the rules are in the digital asset space, we're not going to participate in that economy, and so that's the kinds of things that hold it back.
Okay, I guess it makes sense. When we were on last time, I thought that I read somewhere, was it an entertainer or a professional athlete that chose to get paid with Bitcoin? Have you heard any of those stories where some salaries, or at least part of their compensation from, it was either their sports team or it was some entertainer, they got paid that way? Are we seeing people get paid that way?
Yeah, you've seen some of these stories where people say, I want to get my salary, professional athletes, or some compensation in cryptocurrency. I think those attract more news attention.
Yeah.
There's actually substance there, because if you're paid in Bitcoin, you can immediately trade it on Coinbase and turn it back into cash. So
kind of the same thing, and maybe that. I also saw, I think of Tom Brady and someone very famous like him, or Ringo Starr, could probably make money by doing an NFT, right?
For sure. Celebrities have really been attracted to the space because you think about when a celebrity endorses other collectible items, fashion, those types of things. Celebrities are really good at marketing.
Yeah.
NFTs represent digital assets, which marketing benefits, and so a lot of celebrities got involved in the space to help sort of push NFTs.
Yeah, so that Ringo Starr, I don't know, maybe cost some money for him and time to create that image, but he stands to profit if people start buying his NFTs because he's the creator. It would be like any artist with a painting that maybe, or something like that.
Right, and this is what I think is one of the most fascinating things about NFTs is they operate on something known as smart contracts. So Ringo Starr could put as part of that NFT contract that every time it sells, he gets a portion of the proceeds. And so this is where it can help, especially startup artists. You know, if I'm brand new to the artist space and I'm not well known, the first time I sell my art, it's going to be at a very low price.
Right.
Somebody else is going to profit as that art goes up. NFTs allow the contract to say every time that art is sold, the creator gets a portion of the proceeds. So
percentage-wise, based on how much it sells. Well, that's an excellent point, right? So, like in Ringo Starr, we showed you that NFT selling for four grand right now. If that sells, someone buys that one. He, I don't know, maybe get a percentage of that. Okay. Let's say it passes down, and like a year or two from now, that is selling to someone else. I sell it to you for $50,000. Then he will get a larger percentage, and so these artists continue to profit from their NFT from owner to owner to owner to owner. They never are completely in a way, too, as an owner, I like the idea. In some ways, I'm still attached to that artist.
Absolutely.
Is that, I don't know, does that, you think that's an appeal?
I think it's an appeal, and it's not just digital artists. I think we'll see it in musicians, and we'll see it in other spaces where you're monetizing your creation, your intellectual property, not just now, but over time.
Yeah, I mean, could you do that with a painting?
Yes. No, you can do that now.
I could paint it. You could buy it, and then if you pay, and then there's some contractual thing that passes on every time you sell it. I get a portion of it.
Correct, and that's called a smart contract.
Yeah, and that's something that's started and been evolved, or is something in cryptocurrency. But you see now that other industries may look at that and say, "Hey, well, that makes sense. Let's do that."
Correct. And I think that's a big opportunity for
that alone right there is a whole conversation for a show. That I'm so glad you mentioned it. That is fascinating, fascinating. I'll tell you what, Josh, you're great. Thank you. I hope we enlighten some folks to some degree. No one out there who's like me has a total handle on it. And now let me tell you right now, I'm going to still stand back and watch and see. But at some point, if Scripps decides to add cryptocurrency to our 401k plan or something Vanguard does, I'll check it out. What the heck? I'll go for it. See, that may be a reality down the road, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
it was really good seeing you. We'll take a break. Be back to wrap things up right after this.